Look, Shawn Layden is a smart guy, and he did a lot for the PlayStation brand when he was in charge of it. But some of his takes, in a recent interview with Eurogamer, shows why Sony needed to move on from him. Now don't get me wrong, I respect the guy, but in the interview he said some things that are either stretching the truth almost to breaking point, or he can be proven wrong with a little thing called science. One thing I have to state outright is this: consoles will never die because people are always going to want them. Because guess what? Not everyone wants a gaming PC, because those have their own set of issues. With PCs, you have to upgrade every few years if you want to get the most out of it. To get the most out of it. To get the most out of it. And since there are so many iterations on the hardware, you can get compatibility issues with games. Then you have to tweak every little setting on the game to get it to play as intended. Most gamers don't actually want to do that. This is where home consoles have one major advantage over a gaming PC. Most just want a plug-and-play solution and enjoy it on their big screen TVs where the majority of their entertainment is centered, which is always going to keep consoles relevant. Admittedly, he was referring to the tech powering these consoles, as he feels they're all pretty much the same thing at this point, and he questions the point of proprietary tech, which is spoken like a true businessman who doesn't actually understand the tech side of these machines. Yes, the PS5 and the Xbox Series consoles do use AMD tech and the specs are fairly similar, which is something else I'll be discussing later on in this video, because that's certainly a brain-dead take on his end. Make sure you stick to the end of the video to find out what that is though. So what is the point of proprietary tech within consoles? One of them is innovations. This is one aspect Shawn is vastly overlooking when it comes to consoles. Again, understandable considering he was a businessman and not a tech guy like a Mark Cerny. But proprietary tech allows developers to do things they otherwise would be unable to. Sticking with PlayStation for just a moment, the Tempest engine, which is the sound chip within the PS5. Sure, it is underutilized by most developers, however those who have made use of it have shown how important the audio experience is to gaming. In all honesty, 3D audio is a game changer when used right. Not only is it more immersive, but it also gives greater depth to the sound you hear on screen. Both Ratchet & Clank or Astro Bot are great examples of how to use it properly. Okay, that's a more niche use case. What of a more practical example then? For this, we're going to look at Nintendo. As much as they fuck things up, they did make good usage of proprietary tech within the Switch. Even if I have issues with that system as a whole, it was priced competitively and filled a niche people wanted. That niche just so happens to be the console's primary gimmick, being able to change between being a handheld and a traditional home console. That's kind of the thing proprietary tech is capable of. Where it can be used poorly though would be for things like the PlayStation Vita, where the memory cards were just a bad idea when SD cards had become the standard for media storage by that point in time. Remember that absolutely brain-dead take I mentioned a little while ago? Now we're going to discuss it. Shawn stated he believes that in the coming generations, it won't matter what console is going to be in your media unit. They'll basically just be custom operating systems. Honestly, that is one of the most imbecilic takes I have ever had the misfortune of reading. Shawn doesn't have a crystal ball, and neither do I, so I could be proven wrong in the future, or he could. However, the chances of him being correct are as slim as the Toronto Maple Leafs ever winning a Stanley Cup in my lifetime. It's probably not happening. But as you read the interview further, he says things that make me question if he wasn't just sniffing glue, but also eating it before the reporter turned the microphone on. He stated that consoles are around the ideal specifications at this point in time, implying there's little reason to improve the specifications on future machines. At that point, it's like saying, oh, I don't need a console anymore, my phone does an equally good job. Hyperbole aside, that wasn't a very smart statement from a so-called industry expert. Until very recently, tech experts were saying we'd reached Moore's Law. I hate to tell you, YouTube, but Moore's Law is officially as dead as the fathers Christian Cage goes after in his promos.
And your father is dead!
But getting back to your console won't matter. Of course it matters! Layden even contradicts himself within the same interview, stating the content of the platform matters. That then means the console you're playing does matter, as exclusives are still and always will be a thing, whether they be first or third party ones. I covered why they're still important in another video. Check that one out when you're done here, and hit the subscribe button so you don't miss top tier content that no others on this platform dare to make, as they're content with their empty calorie content that leads to brain dead takes. You'd think Shawn would know this, given he was at the helm of PlayStation for 5 years, so if he can't figure out what a layman could figure out with some basic research, can we really trust his opinion on consoles? Then again, he is currently part of Tencent Games, a company not exactly known for smart business decisions.
Tell me when I'm telling lies!
Now this is something I've been hearing every single console generation since the PlayStation 2, and honestly I am getting as annoyed as CM Punk was when management told him to make Roman Reigns look good back in the day.
I'm breaking the fourth wall.
What's getting me so annoyed is the myth around the generational leap no longer being a thing. There's this idea that we're at the point where things can't get any better because they're so photorealistic. Don't get me wrong, characters no longer look like blocky monstrosities like they did back in the day, but there's always room for improvement. Skin tones, hair, and eyes are just some examples where this improvement could be made, because a lot of companies are still only capable of making plastic people approximations of the real McCoy. Also, hair can still take on paper-like looks, even in the highest budget releases. Eyes are always going to be a trouble, but we've made leaps and bounds this generation thanks to ray tracing, which Shawn feels we're almost tapped out on already. How long has this tech been available to developers? Since 2018. It hasn't even been around for 10 years, and its implementations can sometimes be a little bit wonky as developers haven't figured out how to utilize it like they have for rasterization, which was basically the lighting technique we've all known for most of our lives. Console devs have only had access to it since the start of this generation. We really haven't seen what this tech is capable of yet. That's like saying, oh hey, Pong looks good, let's stop here. Shawn's rationale? That we're at a point where it's too niche for the general gaming audience to understand it. Buddy, I hate to tell ya, but your average pudding-brained gamer, covered in Cheeto dust, playing the latest COD isn't going to understand what ray tracing is any more than a concussed pigeon is going to understand astrophysics. Anyway, if you dig hard enough, you can still find some old video game message boards that were around when the PS2 was still fairly young. People said, I don't really see a difference. This gets said every generation. Experts say it, amateur YouTubers with vapid nothing burgers for content say it, and even the deservedly maligned game journalists say it too. Yet every time, they're proven.
You were wrong. 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 You were definitely wrong.
The generational leap always takes a while to kick in. Mostly because it takes developers a long while to get comfortable with the new hardware. But here's something that was really telling for me. My mom, who isn't a gamer at all, the night I got my PS5 on launch day, said she could see the difference between it and the PS4, so either experts like Layden and other naysayers are lying, or they need their eyes checked. Hell, it's not just my mom who can see the difference. Even non-gamers can. It makes me wonder if all gamers who claim they can't see a difference have vision as poor as Mole Man from The Simpsons, or if they're just too broke to buy a current-gen system, and this is them huffing their copium just to deal with the fact they can't have the newest piece of tech. Since we're discussing tech, this is something else that was brought up in the interview. Layden mentions how the PS4 Pro was the first time Sony changed its mindset. While this is true and it was the first mid-cycle refresh with better specs, one has to consider, the PS4 really wasn't up to snuff for what modern games required. That was because there was a real tech boom around the time the console launched, so by the time it was hitting the middle of its life, developers were pushing well past the specs of the base PS4. Just look at how many titles struggled to run on the base and slim models. By about year 4 onwards, it was clear a refresh was required. With the PS5, this isn't really the case yet, making the Pro update seem pretty pointless. I was going to make this into a separate video, but I feel like now is the right time to discuss this topic. Layden mentions we're at the diminishing return stage. To a degree, he is right. But that's with the tech we currently possess. Should we have another major tech boom, then we'll see another arms race akin to what we saw during the PS4's life cycle. I doubt this happens during the PS5 or 6's lifespans, but a tech boom is always right around the corner. Right now, the eggheads who design computer parts are trying to brute force the issue. Just look at how much larger the best cards on the market are now, compared to what they were in the late 2010s. The 80 and 90 series cards from Nvidia, while a little bit more powerful than their predecessors, have to get increasingly larger just to manage what's expected of them. This is partially because some of them are using newer tech that came out during the PS4's lifetime, meaning they're of course going to need to brute force things and be bigger. However, following manufacturing trends, things always get smaller and more efficient, meaning this tech, as it matures, will trickle down into smaller form factors as the designs get more refined. So until that efficiency is reached, we're going to see diminishing returns until the next big leap, but these mid-generation refreshes are, like Layden said, diminishing the feel of the generational leaps. This isn't a statement I fully agree with, but I do buy it, since the PS4 Pro was utilizing the checkerboard technique to achieve 4K, which the base PS5 can achieve natively, so for some, that leap won't seem so large. But here's the thing, Pro models are a scary proposition, and they're ultimately very anti-consumer. People talk about holding off until a Pro model comes along now, just because they want the supposed best experience graphically and FPS-wise. You dense motherfuckers. If that's what you want, you don't want a console, you want a fucking PC. Also, let's face it, we haven't had any games adequately push the PS5 and Xbox Series consoles hard enough to warrant a more updated model. At this point, Sony released the Pro just to state they have the most powerful hardware on the market. Basically, it's a massive dick measuring contest between PlayStation and Xbox. In this contest, neither of them have as big a dick as they think they do, and it's embarrassing. But Pro models are a really scary thing when you consider this is going to stymie sales of base and slim models, as people will hold off, even if they have significantly improved specs, which the PS5 Pro doesn't really have. It's like the loud drunk guy at a party who peaked back in high school, shiny and cool until you get a closer look at it. Sure, the RAM is a bit higher and the T-flops are way higher, but look at the comparison on screen right now. The PS5 games they're showcasing really don't look that much better. You have to really pixel peep to even see a marginal one, which no sane person is going to do, unless they have way too much time on their hands, spending all their time in their mother's basements while sitting in a massive puddle of sweat from their fat asses. Get in the shower, you disgusting pigs, and get a real job so you're no longer a leech to society. Maybe put that obsessiveness to work. The sciences could really use yet another neurotic basket case. Other reasons the Pro models are so scary is because it'll encourage lazy habits from developers who are already so lazy they make a fucking Snorlax look hyperactive. Yes, I'm calling out the EAs, the Ubisofts, and even the Naughty Dogs of the gaming industry. You're all creatively bankrupted and need to face the old Yeller treatment. What I'm saying may sound harsh, but deep down you know it's the truth, even if you don't want to admit it. But game developers, if given the chance, will take as many shortcuts as they can and give us sloppy, unfinished products that needed more time in the oven. Give them a console that's a marginal improvement over what they had before, like all Pro models, then they'll use the extra power to go fuck optimization.
Because that's how I roll.
That may be how they roll, but it shouldn't be, because then gamers who didn't splurge on the slightly shinier model will get the shaft, and the optimization will be crap. Unless you're Naughty Dog, then you'll have one polished turd, because Neil Druckmann can't make a good game to save his fucking life.
Tell me when I'm telling lies!
If the thought of unoptimized games favoring those who want a simple plug-and-play solution over a full-blown PC doesn't scare you, then frankly you need help and you're part of the problem with modern gaming. I've now informed you on why Shawn Layden is talking out his ass on this one, and enlightened you on the dangers of pro consoles.
You're welcome!
Thanks go out to my current channel members, R. Campbell and Dani Boy. If you want early access to videos and exclusive content, then hit the join button or the link in the description. Now check out why the Game Awards are a shameful, shambolic mess, or my 10 predictions for the trailers at the Game Awards for 2024. Until next time, keep blazing that trail.